welcome to this deep dive. You've brought us a really interesting set of sources today, all focused on open educational resources, OER, right?
That's right, yeah, OER. And drawing from that systematic review you shared, they're essentially learning materials, usually digital, and they
Yeah.
have a specific kind of copyright license, which basically means students can use them for free, no cost.
Like free textbooks and course packs and things.
Exactly. Think free access to all that kind of stuff.
Wow. Well, that sounds pretty compelling, especially, when you think about how much college costs keep going up. And textbooks. Phew.
Tell me about it.
So, our goal here today, our mission for this deep dive, is to really get our heads around OER. What do students and faculty actually think about them?
Right, perceptions.
Yeah, and what helps or hinders, people actually using them, adoption factors, and maybe most importantly, do they actually work? What's the impact on student learning?
Precisely. And the research source you found is, well, it's incredibly thorough.
It looked pretty comprehensive.
It is. It's a systematic review, pulls together findings from, get this, 97 different studies,
Yeah.
peer-reviewed.
97. Wow, okay.
Yeah, published between 2002 and 2023. So that's, a lot of research, gives us a pretty broad and well-backed-up picture.
Okay, so a solid foundation. Let's dig in then. Where should we start? Maybe with what people think. Those perceptions you mentioned.
Sounds good. Let's start there. So what did students and faculty generally feel about OER, according to this big review?
Yeah, what's the overall vibe?
Well, overall, the sentiment is actually quite positive from both groups, students and faculty.
Okay, positive.
And a key thing that came out is that both students and faculty generally see OER as being similar in quality to the traditional stuff, the paid materials.
That's huge, isn't it? Because I think there's often this assumption, maybe subconscious, that free equals less good, lower quality somehow.
Exactly. That's a common hurdle. But this research across many studies suggests that perception isn't really holding up. People using them feel the quality is comparable.
Which would be pretty critical for getting more people to actually adopt them.
It really is. And the review digs into why people feel positive. What are the specific incentives?
Right. Okay, yeah. What drives that positive feeling?
Well, no surprise here. Cost savings is a major one for everyone involved.
Right.
The review even specifically mentions the real burden of escalating price of instructional materials, something most students feel pretty acutely.
Oh, absolutely. You remember that, right?
Huh.
Going to the bookstore each semester, seeing the total.
Yeah.
Yeah. The idea of just wiping that cost out. Huge relief for so many.
Massive. So cost is big. But what else? Accessibility comes up a lot, too.
Accessibility. How so?
Well, because they're usually digital, right? So you can access them pretty much anywhere, anytime, assuming you have internet.
Okay, so convenience.
Yeah, convenience, but it's also maybe more fundamental. It helps students who might have trouble getting to a physical library or bookstore during certain hours, or maybe students with different learning needs. It just makes the material more readily available.
That makes total sense. So it's not just about the money. It's about ease of access, too. Day one access, maybe.
Exactly. Day one access is a big part of that. And the review also mentioned something about increased academic engagement.
Oh, interesting. How does using OER potentially make students or faculty more engaged?
Well, that's a fascinating angle. The idea is, for faculty, when they actively choose or maybe even adapt OER for their specific course.
Right, they're not just assigned a textbook.
Exactly. They might feel more ownership over the material, and that can lead them to maybe tweak it, make it more relevant, maybe teach it in a more dynamic way.
Which could definitely boost student interest.
You'd think so. And for students, well, having that immediate access, no paywall, it might just encourage them to jump into the material earlier, maybe more consistently, instead of waiting or putting it off because they don't have the book yet.
Huh. So it can actually change the dynamic, make it a more active thing for everyone involved, potentially.
Potentially, yeah. But it's not all smooth sailing, of course. The review also looked hard at the barriers. What gets in the way?
Right, the challenges. What were the main obstacles they identified?
Okay, so technological challenges were definitely a big one.
Tech issues, like what specifically?
It's kind of a range of things. For faculty, it might be needing help
Yeah.
technical support, or even just training on how to find good OER, how to adapt them, how to integrate them into their online course platform, that kind of thing.
Okay, the how-to.
Yeah. And for students, it really highlights that the digital divide is still real. You
Yeah.
need reliable internet. You need a device that works properly to access these digital materials.
Right. Just because it's free online doesn't mean everyone can actually get to it equally. That's a critical point.
Absolutely critical.
Mm.
And then there are what the review calls institutional obstacles.
Institutional, like from the university or college itself.
Exactly. Things like maybe just a lack of awareness. Faculty or certain departments might just not know that good OER options even exist for their subjects.
Okay, just not on their radar.
Right. Or there could be concerns about, how much support the institution will really provide if they decide to go the OER route. Is there tech help? Is there design help?
Mm-hmm. Questions about support structures.
Yeah. And sometimes, even with all this research, there might still be some maybe lingering doubts about quality or rigor compared to the big traditional publishers.
So it's not just down to individual instructors deciding yes or no. The whole environment, the institution's attitude and support plays a really big role.
It definitely seems to, which leads us nicely into thinking more about how these incentives and barriers actually, play out in practice
Right.
when it comes to adoption and actual use.
Yeah, let's zoom in on that. You mentioned cost savings as a big incentive. That seems pretty straightforward.
It really does. It consistently pops up as maybe the most powerful driver. For faculty choosing OER, and obviously for the students benefiting, that direct financial relief is just very tangible.
Can't argue with that, given
Yeah.
the costs we talked about. And accessibility, you said that was key for perception. How does it make things more accessible in practice, beyond just being online?
Well, the no-cost barrier upfront piece is huge.
Right?
Students don't have to wait for their financial aid money to come through or decide, which textbook can I actually afford this term.
Mm-hmm. They just have it, day one.
They have it from day one, which you can imagine is especially important for students maybe coming from lower income backgrounds. It just levels the playing field from the get-go.
That's a really powerful point about equity.
It is. And also, the digital format itself can potentially allow for easier use with assistive technologies for students with disabilities, although that depends on the specific OER and the tools available, of course.
Okay, so potential for broader accessibility there, too.
Yeah.
Now, let's flip back to the barriers, those technological ones. You mentioned faculty needing support. What kind of help are we talking about?
Well, the research suggests it's multifaceted. They might need help just finding high-quality OER relevant to their specific field. That can take time.
Sure, discovery.
Then understanding the different open licenses.
Mm.
What are you actually allowed to do with this material? Can you change it? How do you have to share it? If you do, that can be confusing.
Yeah, the licensing details can
Yeah.
be tricky.
Definitely. And then the practical side, actually adapting the materials, maybe even creating some yourself and getting it all working smoothly in the learning management system like Canvas or Blackboard.
And maybe helping students if they run into tech problems accessing it.
Exactly. That falls to the instructor often too. So it's not necessarily just plug and play. It can involve real work and requires certain skills or at least support.
Right, so it's more involved than just grabbing a free PDF. There's a curation, adaptation, tech piece involved.
Often, yes. And those institutional barriers, what do they look like on the ground?
Yeah, give us some examples.
Well, awareness, like we said. Faculty might just not know good stuff exists in their field. Then there can be worries about sustainability.
Sustainability, meaning
Meaning, like, will this resource still be here next year? Will it be updated? With a traditional textbook publisher, there's an assumption, right or wrong, that they'll keep producing new editions. With OER, sometimes there's a question mark about long-term maintenance.
okay. Concerns about longevity and updates.
Exactly. And another big one can be a lack of institutional recognition. Does the university actually value the time and effort faculty put into finding, adapting, or creating OER? Is it recognized in promotion and tenure decisions?
That's a really good point. If it's seen as just extra work with no professional reward, or if there's that worry about the resource disappearing,
Yeah,
that could definitely make faculty hesitate.
it could. So all these factors are interacting, which brings us, I think, to the million-dollar question, right?
Bottom line.
Yeah. What impact does using OER actually have on student learning, on student achievement?
Okay, this is crucial. What did the review of those 97 studies find?
This is where the findings are actually really quite encouraging. Overall, the research indicates that student academic performance is generally Stable.
Stable, meaning no difference compared to using traditional paid materials.
Pretty much. When courses switch to OER, students tend to do just as well as they did before, or as well as students in similar courses using traditional textbooks.
And that holds across different measures, like grades, exam scores.
Yes. The review looked at things like overall course grades, specific exam grades, and even student retention rates, like do students stay enrolled in the course? And the finding of stable performance was consistent across these different measures.
Wow. So stable performance, but with free materials. That alone is a pretty strong argument, isn't it? It tackles that worry about quality head on.
It really does. But here's where it gets even more interesting, especially perhaps for our listener.
Oh, go on.
The review found evidence suggesting that OER can be particularly beneficial for the academic achievement of disadvantaged students.
Particularly beneficial. Okay, now that's a key takeaway. Why might that be? What's the thinking there?
Well, it likely loops back to those factors we've been talking about, cost and access.
Right, removing the cost barrier.
Exactly. That financial hurdle can disproportionately affect students who are already facing economic challenges. So taking that away is a bigger deal for them.
Makes sense.
And having immediate day one access to all the required materials might just create a more level playing field. It removes one potential source of stress and allows them to engage right away, maybe freeing up cognitive resources just to focus on the learning itself.
So it's not just saving money, it's potentially reducing stress and barriers that allows those students to perform better.
That seems to be the implication from the findings. Remember how you might have felt seeing that textbook bill?
Oh yeah.
Imagine that stress gone, plus having the book instantly. This research suggests that removal of the barrier allows students, especially those most impacted by cost, to just learn from day one.
Yeah.
Less anxiety, maybe more focus.
Connecting it back to the bigger picture, rising education costs cause real hardship. So OER isn't just theoretical, it seems like a practical tool to address that hardship and maybe even boost outcomes for those most affected.
That's what the evidence points towards. For anyone listening who's worried about education costs for themselves or others, this finding about OER potentially leveling the playing field, it's pretty significant.
Huge. So OER isn't just about affordability, it could actually be a tool for promoting educational equity. That's massive.
It has that potential, definitely.
Now, this review covered a lot of ground, 97 studies over 2 decades.
Right.
Were there any sort of variations, nuances in these findings we should know about?
Well, the review does acknowledge, the studies themselves were diverse, different research methods, different subjects being taught, different types of students and institutions.
Sure, that makes sense.
But despite that diversity, the overall trend held pretty firm, stable academic performance generally, and this potential boost for disadvantaged students, that came through consistently. It's also important to remember, though, that OER itself isn't uniform, right? Just like textbooks, the quality of individual OER materials can vary. How well they're designed pedagogically matters.
Right, so selection is still key.
Absolutely. Careful selection and, importantly, thoughtful adaptation and integration by the faculty member are still crucial for making it work effectively.
Good point. It's not a magic bullet, it depends on how it's used. Okay, so pulling all this together, based on this deep dive into a massive amount of research,
Right.
what are the practical implications? What should people take away from this? Let's say, for instructors first.
Okay, for instructors, the big takeaway is probably reassurance. The evidence suggests you can adopt OER. It's a viable alternative. And critically, you likely won't see a drop in your students' performance because of it.
That's comforting.
Yeah. And beyond that, it offers real opportunities to make your course more accessible, maybe save your students significant money, and potentially even increase their engagement if you leverage the adaptability of OER.
So it opens doors for instructors wanting to innovate or address student costs. It prompts a question for them, maybe. How could I use OER?
Exactly. It gives them evidence to consider that move. Now, for university administrators,
Yeah, what's the message for the leadership?
for them, this review really underscores the need to be proactive. They need to actively tackle those technological and institutional barriers we discussed.
So invest in support.
Yes. Invest in the infrastructure, the training, the support systems faculty need. Raise awareness across campus. Make sure people know about OER.
And maybe recognize the work involved.
Crucially, yes. Perhaps find ways to formally recognize and reward faculty who put in the effort to adopt or create OER. If they do these things, the institution could see real cost savings for students and make genuine strides on equity and inclusion.
It sounds like a potential win-win then. Lower costs, maybe better equity, same academic quality.
That's the potential laid out here, yeah. It looks like a strategic investment opportunity for institutions.
Okay. And finally, what about for researchers, people studying education? What does this big review tell them?
Well, the fact that it synthesizes research over almost 20 years gives a really solid foundation for understanding OER's impact. It confirms some key trends like the stable performance and the equity benefit.
So it solidifies what we know.
It does. And it probably also helps pinpoint where more research might be useful. While the review didn't list specific future questions, the consistency of findings, like the benefit for disadvantaged students, might spur researchers to dig deeper into why that happens. What are the exact mechanisms at play?
Got it. So it provides a strong base and helps point the way for future studies.
Okay, let's try to wrap this all up for our listener. Based on this deep dive, this look at nearly 100 studies, what are the absolute main points to walk away with?
I think the core message is that open educational resources, OER, they represent a really promising approach to tackling the rising cost of education. That's point one.
Okay, solution to costs. Point two, and this is critical, using them doesn't seem to hurt educational quality. The evidence strongly suggests OER are just as effective academically as traditional paid materials.
Just as good.
And point three, there's even evidence suggesting they might offer particular advantages for students who are already facing disadvantages, potentially boosting their success.
Right. So tackles cost, quality holds up, and potential equity benefits. That's a powerful combination.
It really is. However, and this is the important but.
There's always a but.
There's always a but. Realizing that full potential isn't automatic, it takes real effort. We have to address those challenges we talked about.
The tech hurdles, the institutional barriers.
Exactly. It needs a coordinated effort, raising awareness, providing solid support for faculty and students, maybe changing how institutions value this kind of work. All of that is part of the puzzle.
So the resources themselves are promising, but you need the right environment, the right ecosystem to really make them flourish and benefit everyone.
Precisely summed up.
Well, this has been incredibly informative, a really thorough look at OER based on a huge amount of research. And it brings us, as always, to our final thought for you, our listener.
Okay.
Considering everything we've discussed, the potential for big cost savings, the evidence for comparable quality, and especially those potential benefits for disadvantaged students, what do you think are the most significant, the most impactful steps that universities, colleges, maybe even individual teachers could take, starting now, to really unlock the potential of OER? How can we use them more effectively to boost both the quality and the equity of education? Something for you to chew on, perhaps thinking about your own learning or your own role in education. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.